Okay, well, I guess we'll just get started. I like to start with a little meditation. Helps me, I think, to just get rid of, arrive to class more fully. Um, so let's just take a minute or two to start out by focusing on our breath, kind of putting our mind in neutral. And now, if you could just bring to mind, let's bring to mind our highest motivation for joining this class tonight. And think about how wonderful it would be if we had the skill and knowledge to help all living beings everywhere. And let's set our motivation that this class, the time we spend together, that we will try to move ourselves forward on the path with the goal that we fully achieve all the realizations that will enable us to help all beings. And just take a minute to think how wonderful that would be. And then when you're ready, you can kind of open your eyes and join the room, the virtual room here. So last week, there's something in the chat. Let me make sure I have it open. No problem. So last week I talked a little bit, started out kind of with a refresher, the problems of the pot being, leaky or dirty or just closed. So that analogy for us as students, kind of as the qualifiers, and then talked quite a bit about various qualities of a spiritual teacher, and really got down to kind of like the bare minimum three, which would be are quite incredible actually. And here we're talking about like one's root teacher, that they would cherish others more than themselves, that they would be emphasizing nirvana and enlightenment over samsara, and minimally looking at next and future lives over just the happiness of this life. So we talked a little bit about that, and one of the questions that came up in the chat was, are there different kinds of teachers and different levels of teachers? And so I'll be honest, I mentioned a few different levels of teachers and how we can think of them, but I thought, it'd be nice to have a more structured kind of presentation, because I think there can be a lot of confusion. And especially as we start talking, which we'll get into a little bit later, having this view of your teacher as the Buddha, and your view of yourself as a disciple, then it would be really important to make some distinctions, because all teachers are not equal in terms of the gravity or the meaning towards us. So this presentation I'm going to kind of share tonight comes from Alex Berzin, great Buddhist scholar. So, not something that I made up, but he did a very nice breakdown of, 8 different kinds of teachers we could be talking about when we're talking about Buddhist teachers. So I'll just kind of go through them. And then I think in talking about each one of them, some more than others, it will also help to elucidate some of the qualities that we would be looking for in a teacher, and then also answering some of the questions about how we can be relating to them, or how we should be relating to them. So the first one is a Buddhist professor. So this is like sort of like an academic presentation. Typically that could be at a university, or it could just a community college, or even just someone, giving a class lecture about the history or something. Even the teachings of Buddhism, but more from an academic perspective. And then we have, Dharma instructors. So, a class like this, someone leading a class like this would fall into that category. You can have, so that's 2, meditation and ritual trainers. So most Dharma centers have people there that can assist you in meditation. They've got some experience. It could be, as simple as the posture, or they could be leading you in various kinds of meditation. Some of the rituals, a lot of centers, someone might teach you how to do water bowls or certain mudras, things like that. And that's another level of teacher. It doesn't rise to like being a root guru, although all of these could be your root guru as well. But there is a distinction. They're different. And then we start talking about spiritual mentors. So that's someone who's actually, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but really kind of guiding you spiritually, that you're looking to them for that purpose. So it's more than just information, more than academic information, certainly, more than even general sort of teachings. But you're looking for their, assistance on the path. And then you've got the next one would be like vows, refuge and vow preceptors. So those are the people who would either grant you the refuge vows or grant you bodhisattva vows. Could be tantric vows, but that falls into another category later. But someone who's giving you vows, even, sometimes lifetime lay vows, pratimoksha vows, or, vows for a day. Sometimes people will do retreat and take lay vows for just a day. So that's another level of teacher. Then you've got Mahayana masters. Those are teachers who are really leading and guiding you on the path of a bodhisattva. And then you would have tantric masters after that. And lastly, like the root guru. So talking a little bit about the differences in them. So obviously Buddhist professors, this is based on some kind of curiosity, intellectual curiosity, or maybe interest in the history. It can be, you could actually go to, so, a geshe or a lama could potentially give a talk on Buddhism, and they would still be received by the people going to that. If they're not, specifically spiritual seekers, they could just be very curious. So you can have a person who actually has like a real spiritual practitioner who's also a spiritual mentor. Could be any of these other kinds of teachers, could also function in that role of Buddhist professors. So with these individuals, obviously you want to be respectful. And I think that's, important thing to we talked a little bit yesterday or last week rather about, if someone isn't your teacher, um, not your cup of tea, whatever, just being sort of generally respectful that they might be someone else's teacher, respectful that they're trying to teach something. Um, and that's just a general rule of thumb to kind of treat any teachers, in the strictest sense, from a Dharma perspective. It also says anyone whoever taught you your ABCs, is a teacher to be respected. So, if you think about it, everything that we are doing, everything that we're capable of doing, is because someone else taught us in some way. So having respect for them, but does not create like a disciple, student disciple kind of relationship. Then you've got Dharma instructors. So this is when the student is looking for more than just intellectual, looking for more than information, more than just something historic. They're looking to change something about themselves. So here you're relying on the teacher to assist you in developing, you're getting instruction on discriminating awareness. So what does that mean? You can certainly read books, but it's something beyond just books, because this person can answer questions for you as well. So they're training you in, how to listen to the teachings, analyzing the teachings, meditating on the teachings. So the engagement from the side of the student is greater. And then the Dharma instructors, usually they are like many of the classes that are done online here, it's older practitioners. When I say older, I don't necessarily, although in this case it's chronological years as well, but just students who have been seeking and practicing for some period of time, so they have maybe a little more experience or exposure than you might have. Resident teachers at Dharma centers or visiting and touring teachers kind of all fall into this category. So they're giving you instruction for the spiritual path. And then this is like experiential. So it's not just academic from their side. They are themselves practitioners. And so they can kind of help and answer questions from that perspective, from one spiritual practitioner to another spiritual practitioner. While they may know and even have many more qualities, they can have a lot of realizations as well. They could be someone else's guru. But the relationship for you is that they are helping you along the path. They're helping you to understand, to gain that. We talked last week about your discrimination in terms of, who should be a teacher for you, for example. So looking to other more seasoned or more experienced teachers to kind of help you make those decisions by providing you with additional information, right? So sharing other teachings so that you can then yourself reflect on those things, analyze that, meditate on that. And it can be helpful in all different aspects of the path, but it can also be helpful in helping you to identify a spiritual teacher that fits you well, and making some determination about the qualifications of a guru. So again, these are things you have to check out yourself, not just taking someone else's word for it, but they can be very helpful in that regard. The next one, when we talk about meditation and ritual trainers, I guess it's pretty simple, but if you live in a Dharma center or around a Dharma center, there's almost always, basic meditation courses. And these are in the same category as a Dharma instructor. The same kind of people are helping you with this. So they're maybe more advanced practitioners or simply older students, again, resident teachers, spiritual program coordinators, people like that who can kind of help you with some aspects of your practice. Again, it can be something as simple as meditation posture. So before I get to the next one, which is your, spiritual mentors and what the difference is there, I should probably pause and see if there's any kind of comments or questions, or Anything that'll make this more interesting than just me talking. It's okay if there's not. I just want to create the space. Okay, so the next category, spiritual mentors. So these are people who have particular insight and realization. Of course, it's interesting because we have no way of ascertaining what level of realization or how much insight someone has, right? We can't see into someone else's mind. But what we can see is, if it appears to us that they have some understanding of what they're talking about. Here you would say like they're embodying in some way the teachings for us. So these are people who are for us an inspiration and an example. So it goes beyond just a Dharma instructor or someone who's helping us with meditation. It's someone that we kind of look up to and maybe aspire to develop some of the qualities that it looks like they have. So um, this is not based on um, a title or a degree. So they may very well be a geshe, or they may be an ordained person or a lay person. Um, and they may be a professor of Buddhism. That also happens, but they don't have to be. So, but this is a person who, because of how they appear to us, they've got this power to actually inspire us and help us along the path. And at this stage, when you start looking at a spiritual mentor, that's where there's some kind of commitment from the side of the student. So before this, you can be casually interested. You could be casually interested from an academic perspective. You can be, hey, I just want to, maybe going further, like, oh no, I want to actually learn how to practice these things. I've met other people who are Dharma practitioners. They, have qualities I aspire to having. And so you might go to some Dharma classes for that. People go to Dharma classes not because they want to become enlightened. Sometimes they just want to have more peace of mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't rise to the level of being a Buddhist, right? There's not that commitment from the side of the student. So at this point, when we start talking about spiritual mentors, there is this idea now that you're a disciple, seeing yourself as following in their footsteps. So this is someone who you would be looking up to and aspiring to be like. That's, there's a level of trust and a level of engagement and a commitment that you're making to change and develop yourself in a way that will make you more like them. So at this point, we're not even talking about a root guru or a heart teacher, but this spiritual mentor. This is a heavier kind of. This is the guru that we could say, every guru is Buddha, and there's many teachings that will say that will encourage us to think in that way. The guru is the same as Buddha. We can take that in the at face value, but we can also say, hey, what I know is that there's an unbroken lineage, and these are teachings of the Buddha, and they are facilitating that. So it can be something as simple as that. But this is where we will become. So if we look at someone and we want to be like that person and emulate them and learn from them, hopefully there is that goal that we will become like them. So this is why it's so important. Our mental real estate, our thoughts, our mind is the one thing that we do take from lifetime to lifetime. This mind, this consciousness, and the karmic seeds that are planted upon it, that's the stuff that continues. All the other stuff we will lose. This is the most precious thing we have. So being careful, being cautious, uh, checking out who you look up to and who you want to be like, because you will become like them. So it's important, that you have an example, that you look for someone who is displaying qualities that you really want to have. So obviously, if you want to develop patience, you're not going to be attracted to a teacher who's manifesting, some people will call it wrath. If it's not your teacher, you'll just say, oh, they're angry and they have a temper. Right? If it's your teacher, it'll be like, oh, they're behaving wrathfully. Both are true, neither is true. uh, True and not true at the same time, but they can function for you. But if you're a person who has a problem with that, it may be helpful for you to relate to a teacher who is also manifesting that way, but maybe they're a little more controlled than you. So I wouldn't recommend that person as your root teacher, but perhaps that's a good spiritual mentor for you to have, someone that maybe feel like they have traversed the same path that you have, because there's still that feeling that they can relate to some of your mental afflictions. It can be helpful, um, but they definitely should be uh, an example that you want to live up to and someone who you want to emulate. I think that kind of goes without saying. So that's a heavier level teacher, and that again is where you've now entered into that student disciple relationship. And these are the gurus that we need to be even more careful about being more respectful to. And this would be, last week I talked about, sometimes maybe you have an encounter with a teacher, and then and you respect them, and you take teachings from them, and maybe you do look up to them and they are a spiritual mentor for you. And then maybe something happens where it's just not working for you anymore. Their presentation or how they're manifesting in the world isn't aligned. It doesn't fit you. You, it's okay. The point is that you maintain respect and gratitude for what they've given you, but it's okay to then kind of shift your focus, and to be more aligned with other teachers who are resonating more with you, or who you have a purer view of. But again, keeping respect, no matter what, it becomes really, really critical. And it's critical for us as practitioners. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Um, Maybe tonight or in the future, but kind of how the guru works with us, how we can think of them to help kind of safeguard our own mind and our devotion. So then, this spiritual mentor, now we start to see the spiritual mentor can also, and usually will, often be these other kinds of teachers. So, they're often going to be the vow preceptors, the people who would grant us refuge or grant us bodhisattva vows or tantric vows. Um, they they are the people who would give us pratimoksha vows, because they hold the vows. So obviously, you have to hold the vows yourself in order to be able to be a preceptor of those vows for someone else. So the next falls in line with that. So why take vows, and talking about the vows? Um, so there's different kinds of vows. So there's refuge vows, which there's basic guidelines for taking refuge. Um, I always say what it means is, when the poop hits the fan, this is the toolbox that we go to. Uh, this is where we look for answers. When life hands us a problem, when we encounter a problem, that we try to apply Dharma methods to it. But bodhisattva vows, this Mahayana motivation, which is like, it's not okay just for me to be out of suffering. Like, I want to help every living being. That's motivation. That right. So lay vows, pratimoksha vows are vows of like don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't do sexual misconduct, and don't do intoxicants. Those are like the 5 lay vows. Um, Monks and nuns have Vinaya, so they have different vows. Those kinds of vows are vows that we say you hold only in this life. So you take those vows and you hold those vows for this life. But when you start talking about, and refuge vows as well, are for this life. Bodhisattva vows are for starting now through to enlightenment. So those are vows that we take for the duration of our path. So now we're not just looking at our actions, but we're looking deeper at what are our motivations. So my motivation now is to become, like the teacher. So if we say the minimal qualifications of a teacher would be, well, the first one I said, cherishing others more than themselves. So we're making an aspiration to be like that. So that's what bodhisattva vows are. It's radically changing. Um, so so bodhicitta is a mind itself. So it's not just a thought. It's like our own. I don't have to wake up in the morning and set my motivation to do what makes Bonnie comfortable and happy. I don't have to do that. I don't have to make a prayer for that. Like, actually, that just comes completely natural, uncontrived, spontaneously. What do I want? That's my mind. Bodhicitta is not that mind. It's having the opposite mind. It's uncontrived. It's spontaneous. It's a mind itself. It is imbued. You could not separate. You could not separate the bodhicitta out of the mind. I don't even think there's a good analogy. I used to think like, tea, like you take a tea bag, and you put it in hot water. And then, I don't know, maybe there is a way you could separate the tea from the water again. Probably, I'm not, I'm not smart enough to figure it out, but I'm sure someone has and could. Um, but this is a mind that is just imbued with that. So, and this mind that has bodhicitta, this mind now, when this mind later, and we're not going to talk a lot about it, but when this mind later has a realization of how things are, reality, emptiness, they don't have to think. They're not thinking about bodhicitta because their mind is already imbued. They have the mind of bodhicitta, and the mind that is imbued with bodhicitta is the mind that is looking directly at emptiness. That's the mind. That's the mind that can become enlightened. That's the mind. That's the mind of enlightenment. That's Mahayana. That's Mahayana uh, understanding of emptiness. That's a Mahayana experience of emptiness. Um, there are like arhats who have seen emptiness directly without that mind. Um, that's it requires both. You need bodhicitta and you need the wisdom that realizes emptiness to become an enlightened being. You need both of those things. Um, so, so a Mahayana master is a person who um, is training us in the methods to develop that bodhicitta. Now, again, you can have Dharma instructors. We'll talk about like 8 verses or 7-point mind training, all the Lojong trainings. All of those things are what are we doing? We're practicing. We're learning techniques to take that typical self-cherishing mind that we have, the uncontrived, take care of myself mind, and change that, radically trying to change that perspective. And so a Dharma instructor can teach you on that, but it's qualitatively different. I take teachings from others. I hear others' teachings. I'm here today talking to you, and I wish I wish I had all those qualities, because there is a power. And it sounds very self-existent if I say you can tell, because you can't really tell, right? But sometimes it feels like you can tell. Uh, the first teacher I ever met, Reba Rinpoche, uh, I and forgive me, I probably have told you guys before, but I was interested. So I approached that class. A friend of mine said, there's a Lama, which I really, like, I didn't know what a Lama was. And I really wasn't interested. But he said this Lama had been imprisoned by the Chinese for like 20 years, and he's going to be teaching. So when I heard teaching, my whole um, frame of reference was just academic stuff. And that's really how I approached it. I thought, oh, interesting. And more than that, I thought, oh, interesting. I'm fascinated with what did they do in a Chinese prison camp. And if I'm honest, there was also kind of like a little bit of a sordid, People magazine kind of mentality. Like, ooh, what did they do? Like we have these weird minds. Like, I don't know, true crime things are like very popular. People are fascinated with this stuff, right? So I think in some way, not in some way, I definitely have this mind of like, oh, this will be interesting. Um, and so I went to and I would highly recommend, if you ever have an opportunity, to go to Vajrapani Institute. I'll also put in a commercial for them. So um, they are doing a retreat. It's like Kopan West is what it's called. It's 100% free. So I think they ask for like $200 or something as a deposit. It's more of an investment. Like, yeah, you're really going to come. So they're not holding a spot for you. But you can get it back at the end or choose to make a donation. But it's what's unfortunate is it's over Thanksgiving. So a lot of people I know have conflicts, timing. But I'll put in the commercial for them. It should be a really fantastic retreat. That place itself is just, I think, an amazing holy place. First place I ever met the Dharma, the place where I met Reba Rinpoche, the story I'm sharing now. It's the place where Lama Yeshe was cremated. So his stupa is there. If you go, you got to take a shower on the ridge and purify all your yuckiness, and hit me up and I'll give you the scoop on that too. But it's just an amazing place. But it is in the middle of nowhere. It's in the redwoods. It's maybe like an hour from Santa Cruz, an hour from San Jose, up these like windy roads or whatever. And of course, this is the time before, although you lose your signal, so I don't know how much a cell phone would help now. But somehow I made it up there. Somebody gave me directions to this place I'd never been. And honestly, you get on a road, and the road wasn't as good then as it is now, where I'm like, am I in the right place? And I get up there, and, he didn't talk about what it was like to be imprisoned by the Chinese for 20 years. Not at all. And I was, initially I was like, oh, disappointed. And initially people are doing prostrations. I had never seen such a thing in my life. It seemed alien to me. I'll be honest, it seemed wrong and weird, like people getting down on the ground. It just was so odd. And then, kind of bowing and making themselves small. And he comes in. Okay. He comes in and he looks like the kindest, holiest grandpa in the universe. So, there's that. he's amazing. And if you see pictures of him, yeah, I just think he's amazing to look at. And he taught, I would say, things that I had heard some version of over the course of my life. It wasn't a Buddhist presentation, but yeah, I would say on that night, I could condense everything he taught into probably like the golden rule. If I'm thinking intellectually, like the content of what he said, at least what I could understand, given where I was. But it had a different effect on me. I had heard so many platitudes or ideals coming out of the mouths of, nice people, great people, slightly inspiring people over the course of my life. But this felt so different. It was, he embodied those things. It was so palpable. It was more than just, uh, every sentence felt to me that it was coming from a place of experience. And at the end of the evening, even though I was not, prior to that, not only was I not a spiritual seeker, I kind of had a little bit of disdain for it because I was a know-it-all, not good qualities, you know. But I wasn't seeking, I thought, yeah, I was agnostic, and I just wasn't looking for anything spiritual. But here's this person who's radiating some quality, and it was undeniable. And at the end of the night, I felt like the stupidest thought I ever had in my life was, I'm a Buddhist. And I thought, I'm a Buddhist. And the immediate thought after that is, I don't have any idea what that means, really. Like, I don't really know what it means, but he's one and I'm one. That's what I want to be like. So, I guess, lucky me, right out of the gate, that was, I met a spiritual mentor. I met the real deal. I met someone that I wanted to be like. And yeah, and every time I teach a class like this or any kind of like Dharma talk, I'm just so humbled to have had that blessing, and also just crazily acutely aware that I don't have that power. You know, um, I'd like to get it, and I think to the extent that I have anything that is palpable to another person, it's coming from the blessing of having met um, amazing teachers like Rinpoche Rinpoche and later Lama Zopa. So where was I there? Oh, spiritual Mahayana masters. That's where I was. Mahayana masters. That, the bodhicitta. Like, I had heard a story, and I always thought that it was about Rinpoche Rinpoche, and since then I've heard it, applied to other teachers, but probably true for many. That someone had, was having a correspondence with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama was asking them about, their experience, and the person said that there was one time that they were afraid, and what they were afraid of is they were afraid that they could lose their compassion for somebody who was like torturing them, you know. So having that, like, for that to be your fear, first of all, that's the most sane thing to be afraid of, not the stuff that we're normally afraid of. Like, what's really we should be afraid of is losing our compassion, losing our love for other living beings. And when you take bodhisattva vows, you take vows like, never give up. Like, it's not, bodhisattva vows are not all sentient beings except for George, George, who I don't like. There's like nobody that's left out. So like your ex-partner or somebody that up to whatever period in life you thought was like your nemesis, like they're included. Like they're included in the group of all sentient beings that you are committing yourself to. So looking for a person who's going to inspire you to be like that. This is a person who can lead you all the way to enlightenment. A Mahayana master can lead you to enlightenment because, as we said already, you need the two things, the ingredients for enlightenment. They say two collections, and actually, if I think I'm going to at the end of the class, I'll do a dedication, and it's like basically let this time that we spent go towards collecting the two collections, which are merit and wisdom. And merit is all about bodhicitta. It's service to all living beings, and with those ingredients you can get enlightened. So that brings us to like the next level. And sorry, I'm kind of looking at my notes because I want to make sure certain things, I cover certain things. So the next level is a tantric master. So before talking about a tantric master, I think it's important to say um, there's two ways to get enlightened, and actually one of the ways includes both ways. So one is sutra. So these are, basic teachings on, the six perfections, right? So generosity, ethics and morality, patience, joyful effort, meditation, and then wisdom, the wisdom of how things truly exist, emptiness. Um, and other qualities that we want to develop, like bodhicitta, like great compassion, um, and self-discipline. So it's all of that whole body of teachings is sutra. And technically sutra also means spoken by the Buddha, right? So it's methods presented by Lord Buddha and his teachings. And then there's tantra. So just if you meet, there's this thing, and I think maybe Lama Zopa and other teachers, Lama Zopa Rinpoche and other teachers who've come to the West have done such a good job of making it crystal clear that there is no tantra without sutra. Um, if you hear someone talking about tantra, like it's and it's not that it's not mystical, because it's sort of mystical. Uh, but if you hear them talking about it and like, oh, they're not interested in Lam Rim or they're not interested in sutra, that's craziness, because there is no tantra. The sutra is the basis for that. It's the foundation for all of that. It's an add-on. It's not a replacement. It's not yes, it's a quick path. So and this is where it relates to bodhicitta. But again, this is where we need to know. Last week I talked a lot about, understanding ourselves, understanding our own view and our capacity, and, gently, incrementally building on that. Not trying to do, because it's a marathon. It's like turning the Titanic. It's not going to happen on a dime. And, I've seen people try to do too much and then, end up not happy. Not happy. They can lose faith in the teacher, lose faith in the path. And really what they just haven't been clear about their own capacity, their own boundaries. This is where a disciple has to take responsibility. And actually, throughout all of this, I think, I've heard people say, just of an ordinary university, like, oh, I went to this college and it was horrible and the instructors were all horrible. And I always felt, and obviously there are some places where the teachers are better qualified or supposedly cream of the crop. But I always felt like, as a student, even if the teacher wasn't a great teacher, if I'm doing what I should be doing as a student, this is just in a regular classroom, I can extract knowledge from that teacher. I can extract something from them. And that is especially true as a spiritual teacher. And even more so, it is, I think, our responsibility. Later, I'll talk about reality, this idea of emptiness, which you've probably heard a million times, and we'll keep on hearing it, and we'll keep on tossing it around in our minds and trying to grok it. We can have an intellectual understanding of it until we have an experience of it. It's not going to cut the root of suffering, which is what Manjushri's sword of wisdom, cuts the root of suffering, which is our ignorance. So we're not going to be able to do that until we have that direct perception. But before that, we can build up an intellectual understanding that helps us to have faith in the truth of emptiness. Why is that important? Because the guru is empty. They're not self-existently the guru. They're not universally the guru. So what does that mean? It means that no matter what they feel like they are from their side, we don't have to be right in picking the right one who exists self-existently externally out there. What we have to do is be spiritually mature and committed enough to the path that we are going to extract the Buddhist path from them. And then this is a safeguard too. So, then, your guru does something weird. Maybe it's an enlightened act. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's both. Truth is, we have a responsibility to get ourselves to the point spiritually, like starting with Dharma, I would say start with Dharma instructors, developing an understanding, developing an intellectual understanding, practicing what we've been taught, analyzing, meditating on it. When we've done that, then relating to my guru, that I have constant access to them because they are empty of inherent existence. What does that mean? It means that another Lama with a different face and a different name can absolutely be my Lama manifesting for me. And I'll talk a little bit about that. This might be a little too much right now, but I'm inspired to share it. Take it for what it's worth. But the guru is empty. And so that is a good thing. And we are empty. And that is a good thing. And because we are empty, we are available to become something other than what we are. We are available to become the guru, become like the guru. We're available to become the deity. So I started this tangent talking about tantric masters. So the tantric master is well, first of all, they give us empowerment or initiation. So that's another passing of the lineage. And there's different kinds of, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. So there's different kinds of tantra. You'll hear them say like lower tantras. I actually have it all written out. I was planning on sharing it, but I don't know that it's really that apropos. I think most important are distinguishing. So lower tantras are usually focused on some kind of purifying. And when I say lower tantras, there's nothing low about it. The differentiation is kind of how you're viewing yourself and the deity. So the lower tantras, for the most part, you're imagining, for example, medicine Buddha existing out there, outside of you, right? And blessing you and healing you. Or, Vajrasattva or white Tara. And you're imagining them as being outside of yourself, like manifesting in front of you. And then sometimes also in lower tantras, you can also view yourself as having that blessing so that you're one and the same as the deity and they're external to you. In high yoga tantra, you're using your imagination to plant the seeds to see yourself as an enlightened being. So you're developing this view of yourself. But you start with the view of the initiating Lama. So once you're looking at taking, and this is really exclusively with high yoga tantra. So you can do a medicine Buddha, or you can do Chenrezig or white Tara. You don't, obviously you want to have respect. And if you're, a hardcore student, you're going to try, for other reasons, you're going to be trying to see that initiating Lama as one and the same as the Buddha. And that's part of most initiations, where you're seeing, if not all initiations, where you're seeing the Lama as the deity themselves, and they're conferring upon you empowerment to do the practice or initiating you into the practice. But with highest yoga tantra, you are making a commitment, a real commitment to see that teacher as the Buddha themselves. So one and the same. And how they can be one and the same is because they are empty. That emptiness is one and the same. So a little bit of a sidetrack, and then I'll open it up. But a Buddha has, they say, 3 or 4 bodies, depending on the presentation. So the form body that a Buddha has, they say, well, let me go back. The truth body, the Dharmakaya, is the emptiness of a Buddha's mind. So it is how they're actually existing, and their omniscience, because their mind is empty. They're also omniscient. They see all things, and then they have something called their form body, which is how they manifest in the world. So there's 2 kinds of form body. One is called Sambhogakaya. So that's a paradise body. So that's, deities are hanging out together in their own paradises with each other, and that's Sambhogakaya. That's their, or you might have heard it called their enjoyment body or their paradise body. That's Sambhogakaya. The second kind of body that a Buddha has is called Nirmanakaya. And this is emanation bodies. Okay, so they have the ability to emanate as whatever sentient beings need. That's what that's what Buddhas do. So I think it's not, well, it is challenging, but at least intellectually, you could set yourself up to imagine that, how intellectually, at least, if you've tested the teachings and you have developed an intellectual understanding and you've developed some kinds of experiential experience. I don't want to say experiential experience. You've developed some mini realizations, I guess. Something that feels like a realization probably isn't, because we're so habituated to doing certain things that, I can feel like, oh, I had a realization, like, oh, I shouldn't be judging other people, and it feels like a realization because there's some emotional content, and intellectually I get it, and emotionally I'm all in on I should never judge anybody else. And then someone does something that seems so wrong that my mind instantly, I'm judging, what a jerk, or what an a-hole that person is for whatever they just did. So I actually, I share this example because the very thing happened to me. I was at a teaching, very sincere, very present, and the truth of just how I should not be judging other sentient beings, how everyone is out there just suffering, how I shouldn't have any expectations from them, and I should have compassion for them. And it felt like a realization. It just hit me, the truth of it, like really brought me to tears. Like, wow, how could I have ever judged anyone? How could I ever judge anyone? And then right then, someone did something that they weren't supposed to do. And I immediately thought, what an asshole. And, there goes my realization, right? Like in one moment. So I think, we will get those experiences on the path, but this is why we need to see emptiness directly. We need to realize bodhicitta. We need to get that uncontrived. And you wake up in the morning and you're just thinking of what you can do for others. And it's just natural. And it doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel like you're put out. Guide to Bodhisattva's way of life, you start out with carrots and potatoes, small things that you can do. You can do it happily, and you develop a habit, and you build on that habit, and it grows. Again, incrementally. You want it to grow incrementally. You want it to be real. You want your capacity not just to be stretched for, one event, and then broken, right? Like people who go out and try to, don't train for a marathon, but try to run a marathon, they'll probably end up injured. So it's the same. It's the same as spiritual practitioners. We experience the same thing, and sometimes we really feel inspired to go for the marathon. And this is where we it's our responsibility to develop that spiritual maturity to know what we're capable of. So why Tantra? I'll tell you without talking a lot about it. It's, well, and again, it's a secret, but it's not so secret. A person could go out and buy any book on any Tantra that you wanted to, and you could read it. If you don't have, I wouldn't recommend that. As Buddhists, we say don't do that. But, they're out there. People read these books. But it's a self-kept secret. Like, it won't reveal itself. It won't have the power of the lineage. Nothing will happen to you from reading those books. You really have to have a living master confer that initiation, literally bring you into the mandala. And again, if you remember the emptiness of the guru, if you remember that one of the Buddha, Freudian or not Freudian slip, one of the Buddha's bodies is the emanation body, then it isn't much of a stretch to imagine that Buddha is trying, like the sun, like the rays of the sun, trying to shine down on us, trying to get through to us. And because of my own, and by the way, this is the view, because of my lack of qualities, I don't get to see Vajrayogini in front of me. I'm going to see Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or, Geshe Sherab, or whoever the initiating, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That's what I'm going to see. And they're good, right? But it looks like they don't look like the deity to me, if I'm being honest. But it doesn't take much to see intellectually, like, okay, how they can be. And then based on that, and then based on the experience and the relationship with them, it becomes, I would say for me, still there has to be, it's a little contrived. Or again, it's like, why do I say Lama Zopa Rinpoche and not Vajrayogini, for example? They appear not to be the same to me. But when you're taking initiation and you bring to mind the qualities of the initiating Lama, and who may or may not be a root guru, but who is a teacher that you are committing to seeing as the Buddha in the flesh for you, they're the best that our karma is able to muster up. They are the Buddha. They're the Buddha that we can see. They're the Buddha that I have the goodness to be able to see. And this is the magic of the relationship with the guru, I will tell you. So I'm just going to skip, and we'll talk more in detail, but I'm going to skip to the root guru. So the root guru is the one that really has your heart. And this is the being that will lead you to enlightenment. This is a relationship that has been in the past and will continue into the future. And they are committed to you, and you are committed to them. And they will find you. And if you're unlucky, there might be lifetimes in between where you lose them. And we should be worried about that. Even though they'll tell you that, because you're doing XYZ practice, you don't have to worry about it. Sometimes out of their kindness. I don't know. I'm not qualified to speak on that. But we should be worried about losing them. If we find them, we should worry. And we should ask them, hey, stick around, stay with me, next life. And every practice that we do, dedicating this, they're the one that they're going to get us there. The other interesting thing that I'll say is we call Tantra like the resultant path, because you're focused on the result and you're using the result as the path. I'm imagining myself as the Buddha. I'm imagining my guru as the Buddha. I will say that the more we do that, the more it becomes the reality. We are planting the seeds to see it, and we will see it. And we'll see it in flickering. I'm kind of just sharing my experience, which might sound weird. if you don't have a teacher that you feel that way about. But then you can be with them 24/7, because then you can go into you can go into the grocery store and the checkout person says or does something, and you have a dharma thought, a dharma feeling. You're getting a teaching. You're remembering what your holy guru has taught you. And you could even say that in that moment they are teaching you, then in that moment. I'll share one other really short personal thing, but I'll say, I have other teachers, and I have a teacher who can be seen as by some people as a little controversial. And I remember just feeling, not I wasn't feeling torn, but I knew, like, people have their opinions, whatever. And I was talking to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I said, I see you as one. I see you as two faces of the same being for me. And he said to me, "You're a very intelligent girl." And I know that other students went to him asking about this same teacher. And I know he said to them, better to stay away. So I know he gave, and so for me, he was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's great. You're a very intelligent girl. This is good. Gave me his blessing to study with this teacher. Other people were told essentially the opposite. So, some people then thought, well, this other teacher is whatever, based on the advice they got from their guru. The reason I'm sharing this is because the guru gave opposite advice to two different, more than two, I'm sure, different people, because the same truth isn't true for everyone. It's not universal. It's not a universally good guru. It's not a universally bad guru. It really depends so much on us. And so I think from the onset, like, maybe if you don't take anything else from this class, because I'm not the greatest presenter of all this, but maybe just the personal responsibility to make the guru perfect. And in doing that, we make ourselves perfect. So, I have a guru and I'm extracting. It's like going to that, crappy community college instead of going to Princeton. You're going to extract whatever it is you've got. You find, check them out, take time, but at the end of the day, feel empowered, because you do your due diligence up front with your teachers. You do your due diligence in studying, in analyzing the teachings, in meditating on the teachings. You do all of that due diligence, and then you can get them to function for you perfectly if you do the right thing. And then, sometimes then that will be the advice that you're going to have to talk to, another spiritual mentor or a Dharma instructor to ask some technical questions to get some assistance when you're struggling, if you ever come to that point. And I'll share one other thing. No, maybe I should. I'm going to share one other thing. I had an experience with a teacher, a guru, so, one of the heaviest kinds, that I had this thought in the middle of a teaching that maybe he didn't know what he was talking about. And the minute I had this thought, I was like, whoa, I just had this thought. I've actually already taken a vow to see this person as a Buddha, and I have an actual thought that they don't know what they're talking about. And then there's one thing I could have done that I didn't do, which was just slap down that horrible thought, which, sometimes maybe that's the best you can do, is just, hey, table it, slap down that thought. But I thought, well, Bonnie, I know my mind. This thought isn't going to go away on its own. It's raised its ugly head. And now from this is going to come a whole parade of things that now I'm going to start questioning this teacher on. So I need to deal with it. So, okay, let's take that as the operating assumption. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And by the way, it was emptiness. It was a reality. And now I'm thinking, I mean, it's embarrassing for me to admit, the thought arose in my head, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe he doesn't know. It wasn't that fixed. It wasn't he doesn't know. It was like maybe he doesn't know. But that was bad enough. So then I thought, okay, Bon, let's take that as the working hypothesis. Now, everything you know about this teacher, what could possibly motivate them to be who they are, to show up as they do? And this was not like a 2-minute thing. Like, I did a serious analysis. Like, I know a lot about this teacher. I've had a lot of exposure to this teacher. I've known others who have a lot of exposure to this teacher. And it was so amazing, and it was so humbling, because at the end of it all, I was like, wow, I don't think he understands, because he doesn't know how to goo goo gaga spoon feed it into me. Like, it isn't, it's me. It's I'm wanting my goo goo gaga ABCs, and I'm getting something, it's like someone is it's like Einstein, right? In a first grade classroom. They might think he's talking nonsense. I'm sure they would. Gibberish. It's like Charlie Brown's teacher. And like, it was so wonderful, because I didn't just try to silence my mind, because I knew this is a heretical thought. If you are a tantric practitioner, if you're, have this lama, this teacher as a guru for you, then this is serious. But it was so great that I really, like, I stopped, and I think I know other people, who struggled with their teachers, and maybe sometimes they didn't stop. Like, stop and deal with it. Like, really deal with it. And for me, it was just an incredibly humbling realization. It re-inspired me, and it felt like I had proven to myself, sorry. I felt like I had proven to myself that he was a Buddha, you know? So it was like, it was magical. I'm sitting there. So of course I stopped, hearing any of the teaching, but I felt like I had a better understanding. And it was even through the blessing of sitting in the room while he's giving this Dharma talk on emptiness. And I had that. So all that to say, they can function for us. And then we make them function. It's a two-way relationship. And then we become like them. Ideally we become them. We also become a Buddha. So it's like, and the more we work on seeing them in that way, again, it's work on our side, because they don't exist in that way from their own side. They're not radiating perfect guru. No worries. Glad you joined. They're not radiating perfect guru from their own side. But the more we relate to them in that way, the more they will appear that way, and the more we are changing ourselves. So it's that process of kind of like taking the highest example that we can in this world that we're in these degenerate times that we're in, finding the holiest person we can, and then working with them to see them as Buddha, as the Buddha. And then as we do that, we are also perfecting ourselves. And that is really how it works. I feel like there's something I didn't cover that I wanted to cover, but we have 20 minutes and I talked a lot. So I want to be quiet and just open it up. I hope some things were helpful, and what wasn't helpful, just, flush. Just, but any thoughts or questions or?
For me, as I was writing down a question, I you were answering the question that I was writing down, and so but I missed the tail end of the question. So the question was, if we are empty and the guru is empty, um, and on up, um, to become someone, something, someday, something else, then why do we imagine the guru or the deity outside of ourselves, like a holographic image, overlay? You were answering that, and I was writing and not focusing. I apologize.
Bonnie, you're muted.
Wow. I don't even know how I did that.
I did it. Sorry. It was
Oh,
getting the
thank you.
feedback. It was getting the feedback when she was asking the question, so I muted
Oh,
you.
okay. No worries. No worries. So there are different tantras, and some you're visualizing a deity that's external to you, but what you're asking, and others you're imagining yourself as the deity. But it's both things. So just the same with the deity is kind of like with the guru. Uh, it's this external being that you're interacting with and exchanging that you want to actually become. So in High Yoga Tantra, you visualize yourself as that deity yourself. It feels like an overlay. It is. It's imagination, right? But it's imagination that's planting the seed to have an experience of that. I don't know if that answers your question though.
That does, I think, yeah, okay, that answers. It answers. Thank you. I have a question, but it goes a little too deep, and so I'll save that for another day.
Save it for next week, please, because
Okay, okay.
I would like that. That would be probably more interesting to everybody too. But yeah, that's just the nature of things. It looks like the world is outside of us. It looks like the world is separate from us. It looks like the world has nothing to do with me. Like night is night and day is day, and I don't play a part in that. From a tantric perspective, that's not true. I, without getting into it, there's Kala Chakra, which is all about time. Uh, Day is day because of things that are happening in our most subtle body, and night is night for the same reasons. That's a heavy discussion, um, but we're working with how we experience things today, which are outside separately, nothing really to do with me, but interacting with them. And then we move into the land of imagination, like imagining myself as that being, imagining myself having those qualities. It's like planting the seeds to actually have that experience. And yeah, the guru is empty in addition to everything everything else. It's not like everything is empty except the guru, or you know, and that because of that they can function, and they can function to bring us to enlightenment. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions? Anything seriously?
Hi, Bonnie. It's Anna, the latecomer here. Sorry,
Hi.
William. Hi. Just a quick one about guru devotion. In some practices you do see yourself as the deity, and then you bring in guru devotion, then emptiness, and you use Yav and Bamho. What Now I know these aren't visualizations as in like a yogi would have, or even a teacher. It is my imagination and my mind working in a different way now. I understand, it's changing with practice. But I don't know how to put it, but how far I'm taking it as an indication in the change of my functioning, my imagination, things I'd lean to, ideas I'd lean to through practice rather than through daily life. So, if you say you're having some visualizations, how kind of far do you kind of trust in that? See, I'm viewing it as imagination rather than after discussing with certain other teachers, rather
Yes.
than it being, a realization, or even anything near to an understanding.
So,
Um,
yeah. So I would say when I'm talking about visualization here, I'm talking about in the context of like having had a tantric empowerment or a tantric initiation,
yeah,
right? So that's really critical. Um,
yeah,
and in that case, I think there's no problem with you don't really have to distinguish between imagination and experience. Hopefully, you will start to get an experience where you're experiencing yourself for little bits of time while you're doing the practice as the deity. That would be the goal. Actually, the goal would be to become the deity. The goal is to become the deity. The goal is to become just like the guru, available to be the deity. So we already have part of that. We have our, we're empty. Our minds are
oh,
also empty. So we're
okay,
eligible. And we have the empowerment. So we're eligible.
yeah,
And then it's just that practice. So I think you don't have to worry so long as you have a firm foundation. Okay, so I was about to say you don't have to worry if you're visualizing yourself as the deity. Like you don't have to worry; it's not going to be a problem. However, I guess I could say I can imagine a case where it would be a problem. So if a person is like, "Oh, I have the initiation, and I'm," let's say, it's a wrathful deity, so I'm going to run around being wrathful and telling everybody what they should be doing. That's like craziness, right? Uh, and we are our own judges. Like we know our own minds, but like that this is where I started out, and I don't know if you were here for that, like talking about just the personal responsibility of a student and a disciple. So we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility not to delude ourselves. So, okay, if I really don't have any thoughts about Bonnie and what Bonnie wants and Bonnie competing with the rest of the world, then fine. If I then I can, visualize myself as the deity. And if I have no concern at all for myself, and my sole concern is helping you, and I have no agenda whatsoever, then maybe I could be wrathful, you know? But I know my own mind. So we have to be checking, like, oh, does that sound like me? Does that feel like me? Am I really? I've got no. So it could be dangerous to like see ourselves as the deity, like, oh, I'm everything I'm doing is like enlightened activity. Well, is it? You know, is it? Only we know. Only we know. But so I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess I would say if you are under the care of a lama, if you are continuing to study and practice Lam, so you're well grounded in sutra. And if you're not, sometimes people jump a little bit ahead. They take tantric initiation and maybe they don't have as much of foundation. So it's okay. Just take responsibility to get that foundation and continue to stay grounded in it. Continue to stay grounded in Lam. And then yeah, great. If you're having a visualization, you're using your imagination, you're imagining yourself as, oh, medicine Buddha, Vajrasattva, I'm purifying everyone. Then it's wonderful. I think no danger then. The danger comes if we're not well grounded in that and somehow our imaginations run crazy with us, right? And we're
yeah,
not honest about where we are on the path. And sometimes
uh-huh,
we think we're farther ahead. I shared a story earlier where I thought, oh, I had a realization. And then in a split second, I had the very thought that I thought I had broke through, and maybe eliminated. I didn't eliminate it for 5 minutes. It was right there to remind me. So um, delusions of grandeur, that seems to be a theme. It keeps coming up for me, something that we have to watch out for, look out for.
yeah. And I think, well, more so rather than thinking I'm the deity, it's like a deity appears, and sometimes one day, I had an idea deities were, these light and very gentle, very caring, softly, and it was one of the most wrathful experiences I've had. I do discuss these with my teacher, and there isn't any exact answer to it really. I think she's allowing me to find out for myself, and as you say, make sure I'm safe. Um, but yeah, it's more so, particularly one will appear and it's directed me really. So I'm thinking that's probably my subconscious.
Well, I think it, again, thinking that's the guru
Yeah,
manifesting,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I often think, when you get an initiation, they say, beforehand, check your dreams, but then they also say, and then, don't invest too much in it, right? So like, if you have an auspicious dream, don't get all like, ooh, don't build an ego about it. Or if you have an inauspicious dream, don't get wiped out about it. Don't be discouraged. So I think in the same way, if you have an experience that you're experiencing as a holy experience and a vision, then take that for what it is, as, a blessing from the guru, whatever. Don't invest too much into that, in and of itself. Just like, oh, that was nice. That's a blessing. What can I learn from that? And, I think so long as you're not using that to build up any kind of ego, right? Because that's what our minds can do. We can actually have like a great spiritual experience. And then from that, again, because of habit, not because we're bad, we're empty. We're not bad. We're not inherently bad or good. We're available, available to be bad or good. So you have an experience, then just, okay, that was great. How can I use that to help me develop more bodhicitta, to help me develop more compassion, to lead me to bodhicitta? If you have a vision of something, how can I use this vision? How is this vision teaching me or helping me to actualize the path? I think always, doing those kinds of things are really going to be what helps you. I would say, I would offer. So I see we've got like 7 minutes left. I hope that was helpful, Anna. I know I
yeah. Thank you,
really
Bonnie. Thanks.
danced around it. I wanted to recite one again. So it's in the chat. This foundation of all good qualities, and I thought, oh, can you open it in here, Michael? So, or I guess I could probably share the screen too. Just to kind of read that. And again, it's interesting, Lam Rim, like the first step is like the guru is the source of all good. Such an important teaching. And the path starts with the guru and kind of ends with the guru, like becoming the guru, becoming Buddha. So if you can share that, we can kind of recite it together. Thank you. Okay. So the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable guru. Correct devotion to him or her is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him or her with great respect. I'm trying, forgive me, I'm going to try to make this bigger for my vision. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This is talking about renunciation. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me to always be careful to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeing samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Realizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the pratimoksha vows. These are the vows for individual freedom. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta but don't practice the 3 types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. Once I've pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the 2 attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I have become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the 2 stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the gurus who show the noble path and their spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all inner and outer hindrances. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the stages and path and quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. So I think that's a good way to go out. I wanted to maybe meditate on that a little bit and reflect on it, but we are coming up against time. So I'm going to dedicate, if you have any prayers for anyone specific, feel free to mention those or put them in the chat. I will mention them as well. I would say a few people, Kathy Manning, Nicole Wiles, and Venerable Jigme Palmo. I'd like to dedicate to them. Gewa di kewo kun, sonam yashe so so shin, sonam yashe lejung wei, dampa kunyi to pa sho. By the goodness of what I've just done, may I complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus attain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Jangchub Samchog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyurchi, Ke Pan Yang Pa Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne Gong Du Pel Wa Sho. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then His Holiness the Dalai Lama's long life prayer. Oh, and yes, for animals and beings in the Yellow Lake fire, for all those suffering from the hurricanes and hurricane damage, including them as well. Gangri rawe korwe jinkandir pendang dewa malu zhongwei ne chenrei singwan tenzen gyatso yi shalpe site badu tengyorji. In the snowy mountain paradise, you are the source of all good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, please stay until samsara ends. And for the long lives of all of our teachers, for all of us, may we quickly gain all the realizations of the path in our own minds to help all living beings everywhere. May all teachers and Dharma friends have long and happy lives. May they continue to turn the wheel of Dharma and support us on the path. And for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And thank you so very much for your time tonight. It's really wonderful to connect virtually like this. Grateful for the opportunity, and grateful for the Holy Lamas who have made this opportunity available. So, thank you all so much. Next time, please interrupt. Questions, comments, debate. We love it. And if I can't
Thank you,
answer, that's
Bonnie.
okay.
Good night.